this year, my man Gil, he sent me an article link to Town and Country magazine, and it was the top 25 luxury watch brands.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just like, why are you sending this to me, yo? Like, was this motivation? Okay, cool, I appreciate that.
Uh-huh.
So I look at it briefly. I'm like, I don't want to look at it, man.
Yeah.
And then I was like, something just told me, like, yo, just look through it. So I look through it, I'm scrolling, 1, 2, 3, and I get down to 24, and it says Verdure Watches. And it said my name, it had the picture.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yo, that's crazy. And that was like the highlight for the year. That made 2022 right there.
You're a dreamer. You got something you believe in. And that's a rare thing these days.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Dreamer Talks, where I'm sitting down with people that are living their dream and operating in excellence. Today's episode, I have the honor and privilege to be sitting with my guy, Eddie Johnson, who is the owner of Verdure Watches. Really nice watches. Really pleasure being here, bro. I appreciate you.
Of course.
Truly.
Thank you.
In true fashion to the Dreamer Talks, I got to start with just what do you define as success?
I would say success is creating a legacy. So not only a financial legacy, but also, and to me, more importantly, a spiritual legacy. You have a family, you have children, and you want to just leave something there for them to hold on to and say, okay, this is what dad did. This is what I know is right. And I'm going to follow in those footsteps and, make it even better than what it is.
So that's good. So even with that, right, creating a legacy, do you think about that like on your day to day? Like, how do you kind of implement that thinking, that level of success in your day to day?
Just knowing that it's bigger than me, it's bigger than what I want to do and my wants, when you have kids, that's your main focus at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got to keep in mind, okay, I got a daughter, I got a son, and I just want them to have something great that they can just hold on to and again build up and make theirs. So that's always on my mind. That's always okay, I can't do it this way because it may not be good for them. So let me just think about it this way. Let me be a little bit more patient, So that's good.
Was that shift a major change for you in terms of like thinking that way? Because like obviously you said, right, you basically have family and success in like the same boat.
Yeah.
Right? Was that kind of a change for you? Like, was this like a learned behavior?
Yeah, I would say so. My dad, he's a businessman as well, and just seeing how he did things, it was always, okay, I got to take care of the family first and then I'll be last. So it was learned that way. And then also, going from being single to being married, having kids, it was like, okay, now at first it's me. It's just me here. I can do whatever I want to do, really. But now I got to think more about other people first.
Yeah.
I can't be as selfish as I once was. So
that's good.
Yeah,
that's good. Now I want to go back a little bit, just in terms of your story, like, and then we'll get to Verdure.
Okay.
Like, I guess, where would you say, in terms of, let's say, with where you are now, right, with the success that you have today, what would be your starting point, like in your story, if you had to, I guess, pinpoint it?
So, okay, like you mean like the beginning of when I actually, okay.
Yeah.
So I had always wanted to own something, I was always a creative. I always wanted to like make something of my own. And there was a cartoon called Doug. I don't know if you remember.
Doug,
that.
I remember Doug. I remember Doug. Yeah.
And there's one episode where he had his own shoe line. And he like drew a shoe and it like literally came to life. And so I was like, yo, I could do that too. So I drew a shoe on some paper, cut it out, and tried to like tape it together. I'm like, what am I doing? I was probably like, I don't know, like 7 maybe.
Yeah.
But that like creative aspect was really like birth right there.
That's good.
And then fast forward to, I want to say, to middle school. I just came across a website where polo shirts and jeans where I could buy them wholesale. I'm like, man, I could sell these to my classmates, to my friends.
Facts.
And I could do that. But I wasn't like, I was known, but I wasn't popular like that.
Yeah.
So one of my good friends was very well known. And I'm like, yo, we could do this. We can make some money. he's like, all right, cool. So my dad kind of financed us, and we did it. We were really successful with it. And I was like, yo, I think I got something. Like, I think business is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And so later on, like, you know, I saw my dad's will on his dresser, and he was giving me his watch collection. And at the time, I didn't appreciate it because I was still young. And I'm like, all right, cool. Thanks, Dad.
Yeah, some watches, appreciate it.
And so my aunt actually went to Nyack College, which is a Christian college out in New York.
Yeah.
And this was, you know, when I was around like 8 years old. We were up there, it's the summertime, and we just came across a gentleman, you know, we were walking towards each other.
Mm-hmm.
They stop and talk, and I'm a kid, I'm just doing my own thing. And then he stops in mid-conversation. He looks at me and he looks at her. He's like, you know what? God's going to use this young man. He's going to be in business. He's going to travel. Later on, my aunt's like, you know what just happened? No, not really. Yeah, he just kind of prophesied over your life what you're going to be doing. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So, again, later down the line, I'm in college now. You know, I was playing basketball in college, but, you have that dream of wanting to go pro, want to go overseas or whatever it is. But at the same time, I'm like, yeah, I want to have my own. I don't really want to answer to anyone. I want to do my own thing.
Yeah.
And so for whatever reason, I was Googling watch parts. I came across these watch parts, and I'm like, I could put these together, send it to a horologist, and sell it just like I did the jeans and the polos.
Mm-hmm.
And I brought the idea to my dad. He's like, that's a good idea, but you could do it the right way. You know how to draw, so you can come up with your own designs. You find a manufacturer and have a business out of it. And I'm like, all right. So it took me like maybe 2-3 years, and 2015 is when I released my first line.
That is crazy. So there's so much in that story. So like, I want to go back because I think it's so cool to hear like the start of that entrepreneurship journey. Because I have a similar one.
Yeah.
But like for me, like I wasn't selling polos, but I was selling candy. Like that was it. Like I was, selling gum, pack of gum, $2, $3 here. Go stop at the Wawa before school. Yeah. Spend your 15, make a good 35 at school, whatever. Yeah. But in that, right, you do learn like, okay, this is business, right? And you don't necessarily recognize it as that.
You don't
just
know.
Like, it's like, oh no, like, okay, this is what you want. I can go get that real quick, and you're gonna buy it for me for that. Like, you just think about it on that level. But I think even for you, because again, like. The watch business is, I don't know, like it's not something people would just think of, a watch business.
Yeah.
So
it's different. Like
I want to ask you, like, what made you even look up the parts? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what made you just look up watch parts?
One day, so my dad was sitting on a hospital board, and they had a black tie affair going on. So, we all dressed to the nines, everything. Me, my mom, my dad, and he's like, you want to wear a watch? I'm like, all right, cool, yeah. And so He's just said, here, choose. He had a big case. Choose which one. And I saw one, and I'm like, this is nice, So I put it on. I took pictures of it. Yeah. I'm like, I like this. I really like this. And then I think right after that is when I started looking up watch parts, and that was it.
Wow. Yeah. See, that's really cool. So even fast forward from that, right? So you got into watches, and then you said there was like a 2 to 3 year period after, your pops was like, all right, let's do it the right way. Right. Talk about that 2 to 3 year period, because like I don't want it to get glossed over, right? Because it's easy to say it now, where it's like, okay, yeah, not 2015, it was up, stuck, like I started, but like talk about that 2 to 3 year period, because I talk a lot about process, right? Like so often we focus on destination, right? And it's good to know where you want to go, right? But you do have to understand process, and you have to respect it,
absolutely.
Right? So when you think about even to where you are now, right, which we'll get to. Just talk about that 2 to 3 year process, because that was really the birthing ground of passion and what it is today.
It's funny you mentioned like process, because I remember hearing Blake Griffin say you got to fall in love with the process of being great. Yeah. And so that like 2-3 year period, it was like really trial and error, and that came with a lot of like self-doubt, like what am I doing? I came up with all these designs and stuff like that, but I can't find a manufacturer or one that fits me and what I need. And so I really like almost threw in the towel a few times then. Yeah. But then, I just knew what I wanted. I know that's what God placed on my heart. And like not at that time, I didn't know that's what God placed on my heart. But looking back, I'm like, yeah, that's what it was. And I was just like, nah, I really want to do this. I know I could do this. And I showed a couple of people my design. They're like, yo, you got something. And so that kind of like, gave me a little bit more motivation to keep pressing forward. I'm like, I know I'm going to find it sometime.
Right.
And when I found it, it was it.
I would say, so I want to talk about that, right? So you said you experienced self-doubt. Because again, in process, that's where pruning happens. That's where, it gets dark, where you have those, man, I might throw in the towel on this. Like, and you said you had people kind of speak to that kind of, I guess, revitalize that motivation.
Right.
Was there anything else that you were doing that kind of helped you overcome that self-doubt, that kind of helped you, decide to keep fighting for what you wanted as opposed to throwing in the towel? Like, was there anything that you were doing personally, intentionally, or it could have been unintentional? But
I don't know if I was really. I guess it was just I guess I just kind of did my research and did my studying. Like, yo, I could do this. Just understanding design. Like, artwork is really what I love. That's like a passion. I didn't study art in school or anything like that, but I was always good at it.
Yeah.
And so just knowing, like, I know I can do this. Like, I see all these other companies, and not a knock on anybody else, but I'm like, I know I could do something like it, or maybe better, or something like that. So, one, and then number two, I think it was really, just my faith, staying in the word and really, just really, really, I guess, you could say submitting to the Lord in that sense. And like, okay, I know this is, and now I'm starting to remember that what happened at 8 years old with the man prophesying, so I'm just thinking on all those things. Like, I know something is going on. Like, I want to do this. So let me just stick with it a little bit longer. Maybe it's not something I'll do, but there's a great chance that it is. And I think that just like, that glass is half full mentality is what really helped me to, move forward with
That's
it.
so good. Because I think, again, with process, you don't know timing, right? We talked a little bit before we started about how, like, God's timing is God's timing. It's not for us to understand. It's not for us to debate. It's not for us to negotiate.
Right.
And when I think about and hearing, your story about how that self-doubt and how basically your work as well as the faith piece, like how you really combine the mindset plus the acts, right? Like one of my favorite Bible verses is Proverbs 16:3, where it's commit all your acts to the Lord and he will cause them to succeed, right? In that, it's just, here's the beginning, here's the end, right? Everything else in the middle, well, you better just be willing to go through it. And at the right time, he'll cause us to succeed. And like, that's honestly what I'm hearing when you share that basically, look, I dealt with, self-doubt. I dealt with wanting to quit, the whole nine. But because of the work that I put in about, studying the designs and being creative and staying in that space and seeing the field and just having that self-confidence because of the work I was putting in, plus that submission of belief, right? Because I think so often, especially in like, when outside people hear Christians talk about faith and everything like that, they feel like it's like some heebie-jeebie voodoo stuff. And it's like, no, like that's still a level of belief. Right? It's like in the same way I believe in my ability, I believe in God to make it happen. So it's still just a choice. Like that's something I talk to people about. Like at the end of the day, like anything you believe in is a choice. So, it's like, I think I heard Steve Harvey say it right, where it's like, I'd rather believe God's real and be right, or believe God's real and maybe be wrong. But like, it's like, you gain more by believing he's real versus if you're wrong, you're going to pay for it. Right. Like, I think it's even that in that same lane of when you talk about, being faithful to the goal, to the dream, where it's like, you know what, better to just submit to God. Right. And this is for belief, but just submit to the belief that it's going to work. Do what you can, operate on that level of belief, and just see. Right? Because there are so many things I really identify with that where like it doesn't like the I guess the main method of how you want it to work, it doesn't seem to be working. But you see these like glimpses. You see these little flashes of like, oh man, it's gonna work. Like you get that one compliment, you get that one comment, whatever it is, you're like, oh man, like
that's all you need. It's really all it, it's it's like it's funny because you mentioned the Proverbs 16:3. That was like my theme verse right there, because I'm like, okay, God, like I'm not doing this for myself per se. I'm doing it for you to bring, I want to bring glory to your name. And so I guess just with that in mind, I know that it can go somewhere pretty far. And like you said, you get these compliments and people make these comments like, kind of gassing you up a little bit in a good way, and you're like, okay, I could really, I could do this.
Yeah, that's so good, man. That's like, I think that's so cool. Just like how the smallest of compliments, the smallest, and I think non-entrepreneurs should understand this point.
Yeah,
like, because I think there's like this, I don't know if you want to call it a stigma or a stereotype of entrepreneurs that like everything's great. Every entrepreneur is getting to the money and everything like that, which like it can look like that. Like that's the thing, especially today with social media, it can very well look like that, right? You can have businesses that say they're, making $100,000, but if your overhead is $99,000, like what are you like, and there are really businesses out there that are doing that. And so you have entrepreneurs like you and myself where we're trying to do it the right way.
Yeah.
Right. We're building it from scratch. Like it wasn't like we had some VC. It wasn't like we had some big grant. It wasn't, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't like we just had a whole bunch of relationships off the rip. It was, no, from the ground up, I'm building something. And people should understand how far like that little compliment goes. You know what I'm saying? Like it goes a long, because you spend more time, I think, as an entrepreneur that builds something from the ground up, you spend more time by yourself just trying to think of something valuable. Right? Like you sitting at your desk, right? For you probably just looking at the signs like, this could work. But there's that little voice, this might be trash. I don't know. Right? For me, like if I'm sitting down trying to think of a program, like, ooh, that could really spark something. But nah, that could be whacked. But when you go through, I guess, presenting out your product to the world or your service or whatever out to the world, and you just see like that genuine, like, no, that was really good. Like, even if they don't buy, right? Like it's not even like buy, don't buy, whatever. Great, I'm gonna still get to work. Right. But that little just acknowledgement is like the biggest thing in the world. So with that, right? So you said in 2015, that's when you really launched. That 2 to 3 year period is where you dealt with the self-doubt. You dealt with overcoming certain things. And now, like, talk to me about like the bridge, that gap between 2015 and now, because obviously you got married, obviously you have 2 kids now, and the whole nine. Like, talk to me about that process, right? Because as we talked earlier, like that was a shift, right? Because you're building this watch business, that's something you want to do, then you incorporate family, right? Talk to me about that process.
So you go from being it's just me here. I got all this time. I got some money that I could just put into it to now, let me think of it a little differently. Maybe, try to budget a little bit differently for what I want to spend, say, in terms of marketing or my inventory, whatever. Right. And so your mind just goes from being just a straight up entrepreneur, a bachelor entrepreneur, to a married entrepreneur. So it's a little different. And then, you have kids and everything. And so I think, and also I want to say this too, is, the Bible says that he who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. So me and my wife was really a boost in a lot of ways too, because, like you said, we spend a lot of time on our own as entrepreneurs, and we're our own yes men a lot of times, you know what I'm saying?
Facts.
And so I have my wife now, and she be like, nah, that's not it.
Bro, I identify with that. Yo,
she's like, that's not it. And I'm just like, really? Like,
right.
Yo.
And then you feel like she's attacking you. You spent like hours working on an idea. You're like, well, this about to be the one. You show her. Nah, that ain't the. What you mean? I spent all this time. What you mean? That's so good. Yeah. But I think that is important, though.
It is. It's very important because you don't want a yes man, or a yes woman, and she helps me to think a lot deeper in terms of a lot of things. And like you said, sometimes you think like, yo, you attack me, but really it's coming from a place of love. Like, no, like maybe it's just my delivery is my delivery, but I'm really coming to you because I just think you should think about it a little differently. Yeah. And so that's kind of how. That's been the really big benefit from first starting out to now, is now I have someone that I can really bounce ideas off of, and she'll tell me, especially from a woman's perspective, because in retail and stuff like that, women are huge consumers.
Women drive.
And so you get that idea from her, and she likes to shop. She's big into fashion and everything like that. So I'm like, okay. she made that. Maybe that's a good point. I need to take that in consideration. So, yeah, that's the biggest thing that has really helped me. And again, since being married, things have really started to really move forward.
Yeah.
And I know that that's God's favor.
Absolutely.
So,
it sounds like marriage and family and everything like that has almost made you more effective. Yeah. In the sense, like, you know, you've obviously now, like, you have to prioritize your family above business, which that in itself is hard to do. Yeah, man. Right? That in itself, because again, when you create something from the ground up, like that's like your first baby. Yes. Like you know, that's your first baby. But now you're prioritizing your marriage, right? Then kids, so now family above business. But now you still have the business and you're trying to manage family. So like you have to become more effective with your time. Right. But then you also have the, I guess, springboard of ideas now where you can talk to your wife about, hey, what you think of this? I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think? What's your opinion? Right. And now like there's almost like a filter to what used to be, well, okay, point A, point B. Yeah. Now it's, okay, point A, point B. Okay, now maybe we bring it out to the world, like depending. Right. Like it sounds like, so talk to me a little bit about that process in terms of how, more like the practical ways in way in which like you've become more effective, whether it's with your time, whether it's with just your efforts, like whatever. Just how did you become a little like more effective?
So managing time, that was the biggest transition because again, you know, it's just you, then it's family. So now you want to have your family time and things like that, but you still want to get to business and do what you want to do with your business. But it's funny because sometimes in that, you know, circle of, you know, you family business, you kind of learn stuff right there. Or for myself, I'm able to brainstorm while I'm talking to them. They may say something, or we'll look at something, like we'll go shopping or something and see something like, oh, okay, I could use a pattern like that in this. Right. And then, you know, my son, he actually wants to be an architect. Really? Yeah, and it's funny because when I was young, that's what I wanted to be, an architect. I wanted to design houses and all that. Yeah, you've been in the art design for a long time. I wanted to do that, and so just to hear him say that, I'm like, yo, that's crazy because I wanted to do that. So okay, let me try to help you out and do that. And so I'll bring some designs to him. It's like, yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. And just to know that his mind, his mind is, you know, kind of in art in the sense too. I can really, you know, trust his judgment, you know, and hear what he has to say. So it really, you know, managing your time, you know, and it all works together some way, somehow. It all ends up coming together. Right. And that's really what I've been seeing, what I've been learning, and how I've been able to really fine tune certain things. You know, so
that's really cool. And I think what's dope about that is like in the same way, right? We said starting a business from the ground up is like your baby. And like you have to deal with that hurdle of even sharing the ideas, right? Dealing with like this is my idea. Like I don't really show people how I do it the way I do it, right? Right. And so for you now, you're in a place where you're sharing ideas with your wife, sharing ideas with your son. You're even getting that feedback. Yeah. It sounds like it really helps with that effectiveness, which ultimately, a more effective you is a more effective Verdure, right? So. Talk to me about, and we're here because I think this is an important point, especially when you think about entrepreneurship and stuff like that and relationships specifically. Talk about that conversation with your significant other when it comes to the entrepreneur that's still trying to get there, right? Like clearly the concept works, right? Like, okay, you've got sales, it's on its way. But obviously, especially as a man, it's like, having that conversation of, hey, this is something I've built, it's on its way, and I know that you're looking for security and all that type of stuff. Like, there's no guarantees with this thing, but I'm working it. Like, you see what I'm doing. Talk to me about that process in terms of, like, and maybe this is more not necessarily an entrepreneurship question, but just more of just as a man question, where it's, you have something that you've built from the ground up that you love. You have a woman that you love, but you also know your responsibilities with the business, your responsibilities as a husband, now are not necessarily in conflict, but it's almost like you have to go to another level. Right. Particularly depending on where the business is. Right. So talk a little bit about that.
Okay. So I've said once before that whatever, like your dream and your goal, you know, especially like in, you know, Mike, I know this is what if God has told you this, it's yours. And so other people may not understand that, even your significant other. They may not understand your drive, or they may think you crazy for doing certain things, but you like, nah, I know that this is gonna work. You just just trust me. Just be patient with me. Just ride with me on this, and like I know it's gonna work. And so you have to kind of. And that's not even just like, say, your significant other, but maybe family, maybe friends. You have to be like a self-starter. You have to really believe in your work and in what you can do, your abilities, and know like, okay, I know I can do this. I do have a lot of people saying, not now or no, or however the message comes.
Yeah,
it's maybe not in favor of what you want to do, but you still, again, if you know that this is what you want to do and you're really passionate about it, you have to go for it. You gotta, be willing to, again, be alone. Sometimes when you're alone, that's when you're able to grow a little bit more because there's no distractions. You're just, you're in there, you're grinding, you're doing what you believe is right for, whatever you want to achieve.
Yeah.
And so you have to just really have that, that self-starter focus that I'm going to do this regardless. It's going to work regardless.
I really appreciate that point, because I think this is where like faith and fact really clash like the most, because you do really have, like, it really does take faith to tell, like, the woman you love or just your significant other or family or friends, whatever, no, this is going to work, right? It takes real faith when, like, you just got the email, not right now. You just look at the registrations, 0 people. Like, it takes faith to be like, nah, this is going to work. And, you deal with the facts of, okay, this is someone I was spending the rest of my life with. This is my family, whatever the case may be. I'm growing up. Bills are real. First of the month is always coming. So even with that, right? And I want to tie this to the effectiveness point we made earlier. Talk about like that drive that created in you, because again, it takes faith.
Yeah.
Right. It takes faith. It takes work. Like, talk a little bit about like how that, I guess, that conversation or that being in that space has elevated your work or just your drive to make something happen.
So being being an ex-athlete, you have your goals as an athlete, right? You want to go and play here, play in school here, go D1 or whatever it is your goal is, and that you got to put the work in. And so growing up, I would always, I feel like in a sense I was kind of like the underdog growing up in high school, being an athlete, whatever. And so I had to like really prove myself. And so, I had no problem with it. I'm like, you know what, when the lights is on, I'm gonna show up. This is how I was raised. I'm not scared of anything. I'm not scared of, the moment. So I'm just gonna put in the work, and it's gonna show. You're gonna see it, and then you're gonna know that, okay, you belong here, and everybody else see that too. So just in the same sense with business, with entrepreneurship, you have that drive, like, okay, I know this is the goal, and these are the particular steps I need to take to reach that goal. And there's going to be some setbacks, but I always say too, no losses, just lessons.
That's good.
So
that's good.
You don't really lose it. But you have to have the mindset to know that, okay, I just got to go back to the drawing board and see where I went wrong and correct it.
Yeah.
And so that's part of the effectiveness, where you got to keep learning. My dad, growing up, he used to tell me, you got to be a student of the game. You want to be, you want to play basketball, you got to learn from the people that came before you.
Right.
So in the same sense, I try to say now I'm a student of life. So not even just in business and what I the mistakes I make in business, but the things I do wrong just in life in general. I always try to learn from it, because I don't like making the same mistake twice. I don't like going through stuff and having to be hurt and doing that more than once. That's just crazy to me. So I like to learn, and you really put things put things into play that you learned before. I mentioned to you when we spoke a little while ago, I was like, yo, I gotta use, in order to get funds for what I want to do, it's not the wisest thing to come out of pocket. Use your own money.
Right.
Get some business loans, other people's
Facts.
money. So
Facts.
that's just it's a learning process. I was spending my own money, and you see, okay,
Right.
At the end of the day, I don't got that much bread left, right? So
yeah, that's a
you
fact.
know what I mean. So that's you learn from the past. You know,
I think that's so. I honestly say that's a profound point, because I think there are so many people, whether in entrepreneurship or not, just in life, you have a goal, you have something you want to accomplish, big or small, that they avoid those mistakes just because they don't want to make a mistake.
Right.
And in the same way how you said there's no losses, there's only lessons, I always say mistakes are, you just gain information.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, it's information. Like, because I would rather take action, make a mistake, learn from the mistake, get that information, figure out, okay, what kind of worked, what just didn't work at all, what should I have gone right, should I have gone left, right? And at that point, you now are able to move forward. But there's a lot of people that don't take action at all because, you know, analysis paralysis, self-doubt, whatever it is that they're experiencing, and they're just staying there. And then they're wondering, why is my life the same? Why is, you know, the same things that keep me up at night still keep me up at night? And it's like, well, you got to do something. You got to act. And I think in a lot of ways, I think that's like the healthy pressure that, you know, at least in the entrepreneurship space, entrepreneurship, as well as just even, you know, taking marriage into account, like that healthy pressure of, okay, well, you can't stay the same. Right? Like, I think so often, and God knows this isn't a relationship show, but like, you know, you can't stay the same way before marriage, in marriage, right? Like, there has to be a change, and that change is an internal one. And in the same way, when you change your being, right? I talk about the principle of be, do, have. Like, if you change your being, that'll change what you're able to do, which will change what you're able to have. And like, even to your point earlier about how in the Bible says, he who findeth a wife findeth a good thing, and all things will be added unto you. So it's like, you get married, changing of being, you're now doing way more effective work, right? You have a soundboard with your wife, you have a soundboard with your son. Now you're going to start seeing the fruits of that doing, just off the strength of basically doing the really hard work of changing the being of, you know, like we talked about, breaking through, like actually sharing ideas and finding that balance of time and becoming effective, the whole nine. Like, I think that's a really, really profound point. And I want to touch on a point, because you've mentioned your pops twice now. Talk a little bit about the role he's played, because, you know, you said like you're a student of life, you're a student of learning, and like, if you want to be good at something, you got to learn. Speak to just the role your pops has played, and if you have any coaches, mentors, or anything like that, just why that's so important.
So my dad, that's my man, yo. Like, I love that guy. And, you know, as I grow, I see myself more, you know, as him, you know, like it's crazy. But he, you know, he's a hard worker. He says himself, like, he's a hustler, you know, he puts in the work, you know, he came from nothing. And, just to see, you know, his drive, and, you know, he had goals, he had plans, he had things that he wanted to do, wanted to accomplish, and he set out to do those things. He put in the work, and he did that. And he always, you know, he's a man of few words, so he only have to say a couple words, and I'll be like, all right, cool. And that also goes from his dad. He learned that from his dad. So it's it's a legacy type of thing. And you know, he was just a great role model, a great example. He will always show me what to do. You know, it's one thing to tell somebody something, but to tell them and show them, you know, that's the beautiful thing. And just to know that I can always approach him with anything, you know, and he'll give me sound advice. You know, the Bible says you look for wisdom, for sound advice, and that's really what I try to do. And he's somebody that I trust the most. And I'm like, you know, what do you think about this? What do you think about this idea? And so just him, you know, growing up, and him just always being this supportive, dropping, you know, work to come see me play. He never missed a game, always took me to every tournament, you know. And so just having a dad, a father figure around is very instrumental to, you know, men and women. You know, you need that. Just to know what the standards should be, you know, to know how to act, how to conduct yourself. Also to have that discipline, you know. That's really what it takes to for anything in life, especially for entrepreneurship, but anything, you need discipline. You know, and my dad really instilled that discipline in me, you know, whether it was, you know, go to bed at a certain time, or, you know, turn the TV off, or whatever it was, you know, he was always there to guide me in that way. And as a kid, you don't realize how important that is until you grow up into a man.
That's facts.
I said one time how, sons need their dad, but men need their dad even more.
That's a fact.
And so, I just continue to learn from him even to this day. And, he's really, been that driving force. And again, he's the one who got me into watches.
That's facts. I was going to say, he is the one that kind of started this whole thing.
Yeah. So he's just been he's a great dude. He's a great guy.
No, I have very similar experience with my pops too, where it's like, you don't realize like how important that presence, you don't realize how important just being able to go into the office and ask a question and get like sound, unbiased, advice. Yeah. Like that is so valuable, especially because, my dad is much older than me, right? In terms of but not even necessarily in age, but just an experience. So there are just things that I'm not going to know without necessarily needing to go through the fire of it.
Right.
Just because I just decided to go ask the question. And I even find like the more confident I am in just asking questions, and not necessarily just to my dad, but just people that I know have the answers, I find that confidence helps when it comes to business.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Just because, it takes confidence to ask somebody random, hey, you want to buy my stuff? Like, what I'm saying? Like, and obviously you're not, please don't let that be your sales pitch. But, what I'm saying? But like when you're cold calling or whatever, and like it's like God tells you, like, go in there and tell them about what you do. You're like, God, I don't want to tell them what I don't think they're going to buy from. Then you're like, oh, all right. Yeah. But like when you're in that rhythm, that discipline right? That discipline of, if I have a question, I'm going to ask, right? Like I'm going to have the discipline to go find the answer, right? I'm not just going to have the question and hopefully it just pops up, right? Because there are a lot of people that live like that don't have like a discipline or even a desire to want that information,
right?
Because information is so valuable. Like as a coach, I say that, or it's like you could get one nugget. It could be like the simplest point, but it can have the biggest impact on your life that like changes everything for you. Like that's even what I've learned in entrepreneurship, where it's like the smallest tweak, the smallest word change or process change or whatever. There's so many levels to it, but that small could like elevate, your entire business, which changes your life, changes your conversation, your circles, the whole nine. So Talk to me a little bit about, in the same way, right, you have your dad as, someone that you ask for advice. Do you have anybody else in your life that you look to for advice or just encouragement or whatever? Because I believe, like, we all have different people who serve different functions in our lives. So do you have anybody like that?
Besides my wife and my dad, my mom, absolutely. But then outside of, like, that, I don't speak to him as much as I want to, but my college coach, my AAU coach. Yeah. So he was the one that really like boosted my confidence. I'll never forget, I was in a tournament, I think it was in Rhode Island somewhere. It was a championship game, and I started off real cold. I missed a couple shots, and one of my teammates got fouled. They on the line, and I'm back at half court. And he calls me, and he's like, yo, 5. And I look back at him, he's like, knock it down. And I'm like, okay, bet you still believe in me that I can hit, Right. And so you have that short-term mentality when it comes to shooting. You got to get out the slump. You can't forget about the last
next
shot.
one's always going in.
Exactly. That's right. And so he really believed in me, to really, believe in my abilities. Like, yo, you can do this. I know you can do it. You know you can do it. So do it.
Right.
And so I always go back to that moment, that particular game. I remember it exactly how it was, And so just knowing that someone that didn't grow up with me, this is my coach. I love him, but he didn't know me like that at that time. And just to know that, okay, he believed in me. And so maybe there's other people that believe that as well. Yeah. So I could do this,
Right.
And really, again, having those great figures around you that instill that confidence in you. So that's why, you said you got to make sure your circle is right.
Facts.
Your circle has to be right. And again, you don't want yes men in your circle all the time, but people to hold you accountable, people that believe in you and don't mind telling you when you're wrong, but praise you when you're right and let you know you're doing well and keep going. You know, so
I think that even speaks to our earlier point. That's why I love the game of basketball, because I feel like there's so many like life parallels and analogies that are possible. Because in the same way your coach saying, knock it down 5, right? Like that level of confidence, it's the same thing if someone comes up to you, yo, that design is dope, bro.
Yeah.
I'm not buying one today, but that design is dope.
Yep.
Like it's that same, okay, now like there's something to it.
Something's there.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think I talk about, a power of one mindset where it's like, okay, if one person likes this, there's got to be more people out there.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like if I can make one sale, I can make 10. It's just I got to find my 10.
Yeah.
Right? I got to find my 100. I got to find my 100,000, whatever it is. And it's like that same level of thinking of just like, man, you got to have people that are able and have the capacity to speak into your life. And not necessarily in like a prophetic way all the time, right? You definitely do need people that will speak to you in that way.
Right.
But just in terms of saying like, hey, man, like, I just see what you do.
Yeah.
That's it. Like I don't want to. I see what you're doing. I see. You know what I'm saying? Like even when we talked before, how we were kicking it about content and stuff like that. Like that meant the world to me.
Yeah.
Right? Because it is those small little conversations, those small little comments that really give you a boost, man. Because this is a long journey to build stuff up from the ground.
You know, and I guess being entrepreneurs together, you understand the journey, and the the lows that you sometimes experience, and it always is. It's always nice to hear someone else that knows what you're going through to tell you, yo, because good stuff.
That's good.
You know?
That's facts.
Yeah.
Now I want to switch gears a little bit because like that humble stuff is nice. I want you to brag a little bit because these watches is very beautiful watches. Like I think I told you that from the first day we met. Like these are beautiful watches. Like obviously we covered basically like where the watch dream came from. We covered 2015. We covered marriage and joining. Talk now about kind of where Verdure is.
Okay.
Just the accomplishments. Like talk heavy right now about like because these ain't no small change watches we talking about here.
Yeah. So we spoke briefly earlier. So this year, my man Gil, he sent me an article link to Town and Country magazine, and it was the top 25 luxury watch brands. So I'm just like, why are you sending this to me? Yo, like, was this motivation? Okay, cool, I appreciate that. So I look at it briefly. I'm like, I don't want to look at it, man.
Yeah.
And then I was like, something just told me like, yo, just look through it. So I look through it, I'm scrolling, 1, 2, 3, and I get down to 24, and it says Verdure Watches. And it said my name, it had the picture.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yo, that's crazy. And that was like the highlight for the year. That made 2022 right there.
Yeah.
And that just really told me, let me know that, okay, it's going to continue to get better. So 2018, I had a billboard up in Times Square in New York City. I had like 3 of them.
Yeah.
And so right there, I'm like, maybe this is God showing me like this is where the brand is going to be one day, like a cornerstone in the watch industry, right? And so seeing that article, that was like, yo, it's about to be that. People are recognizing things. I'm getting messages from people. I know one person just a couple of years ago that bought a watch. They were like, you know what? I have APs and big names.
Yeah.
He said, your watch is right next to that. And I'm like, that's the best compliment I got.
Absolutely.
Thus far, so.
Be honest, you cried.
Nah, I didn't cry.
Oh, man, come on.
I know I was cheesing ear to ear.
I bet.
I was like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Man. So that's really, again, that tells me I'm doing something right. I got a little something here that I want to expand and, go international at some point.
Absolutely. But I think what's so cool about that is, again, it just speaks to process, man.
Yeah.
It speaks to process. And like, I appreciate the way that as I've followed you, the way you've honored process. Like, because it's really easy to say, okay, I want a watch brand that's going to run it up. And like, that's the goal, right? But the way in which, me personally knowing you, you have said, yeah, the watch brand's important, but my family comes first. right? Yeah, the watch brand's important, but like I'm still putting God in all that I do, and like I'm not ashamed that. Like I appreciate that type of stuff because again, it takes that confidence, right? It takes that, you know what? Hey, buy my watch, don't buy my watch, but at the end of the day, like I have a really good product, but this is who I am, and this is who I'm going to stay, and I'm thankful for that, and like I'm proud of what I have outside of this. Like I think that to me is. I think that's the definition of excellence, and even to your definition of success. Because it's like, man, what you know what I mean? Like, there's no amount of money that can, you know, you wouldn't trade money for that feeling of seeing 24 Verdure watches, right? You wouldn't trade money for, you know, seeing your wife being proud of you for something she saw you build, or your kids being proud. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like stuff like that. That to me, at least, when I try to put myself in that mind frame of like, man. You could offer me a check with 8 commas, dog. It doesn't matter. Like I'm gonna take that experience, that moment, because it's something you truly earned. Yeah. Right. Like I think that's amazing. So I truly commend you, bro. Because you know, again, it's funny when we first met. Verdure Watches the whole time. I'm like, okay, watches are dope. And then I got to think, I'm like, who owns a watch brand? Like it's like a watch, like because I think also what's really cool about it. When it comes to luxury watches, we only hear about the Rolex, the APs, you know what I'm saying? We only hear about those big names. And like, it's a space that like is like an exclusive club. Like, you don't, like, I wouldn't have thought in my mind, like, oh yeah, like watches, like start a watch business, right? And even like but I think it's cool to see somebody say, nah, okay, I see the big dogs and I can play with them, right? Like I have the creative mind, I have the drive, the knowledge, the skill to, you know what, I can get there. And again, I think that even speaks to faith. Like that speaks to the faith, that speaks to the confidence to say, okay, now like I'm gonna play. Like, you know what I'm saying? I think about it like, you know, we growing up, you know, Pops would take us to the park, play against older guys, and you probably get beat up on that first couple times, but you get that first shot with the older guys, oh, you feel like the man. And it's like that same progression, you know? Because I think, I'm glad I know you. I'm telling you, I'm gonna get a watch. I'm gonna hold it on ice too. I ain't gonna wear it because I know where you going is big. So, to wrap up. So here at Craft Your Dream, I always talk about 3 core principles that I believe make any dream possible, which is clear vision, 100% effort, and consistency. Applying those 3 core values, I think if anybody does that, you'll be successful. Yeah, right. Absolutely. For you, in terms of your success. Where you want to take Verdure Watches, I know you want to lead your family and the man you want to be and everything like that. What are your 3 core values?
That's a good question. Really, I like your 3 core values, but yeah, you know, you have to be consistent always. You have to be driven, you know, you have to know what it is that you want. And I say it all the time, you have to be a self-starter. You have to be motivated. You can't, you know, you can't depend on other people to put that battery in your back all the time. Sometimes you have to just do that on your own. You know, if there's something that you want, you're going to do whatever it takes to get there, you know, and you have to be dedicated to the process. You got to fall in love with the process of being great. It's a process, you know, you're going to have your lows. Social media, unfortunately, has, you know, it's just like everyone's highlight reel. You don't see the, you know, people falling down and tripping and stuff like that. You don't see that, you know. So once you understand that part, that you also have to, you know, I know I gave more than 3 months.
No, you good. No, look, flow. Go ahead.
I know, like, you know, you just have to really be dedicated, you know, and be able to move forward. However however that looks, you know, whatever bumps and bruises come along the way, it's a learning process. You learn. No losses, just lessons. You're learning. You keep learning. You keep applying. You keep fine tuning, and you know you'll be able to get to where you want to be. You know, it's you know, if it was so hard, there wouldn't be as many people that are successful. It is hard. It is work, but. It's doable. Yeah.
I always like to say to that point, like success is something that's very simple, but it's not easy. Right. Like if success was easy, everybody would be a millionaire. Everybody would be running a whole bunch of great companies. But at the end of the day, it takes work. It takes that consistency. It takes just having a goal and just pounding the pavement with it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think that's just what it is.
Absolutely.
But Eddie, tell the people where they can connect with you, where they can buy their Verdure watch.
Sure.
Like this is, you see this packaging? This is a watch. For those of y'all that don't know, like, this is a watch. So where can people connect with you? Where can they find you?
Okay, so the website is verdure-watches.com. That's V as in Victor, ERDURE-watches.com. Also Instagram, verdure_watches. Twitter, I don't know. Twitter, Verdure_watches, Facebook, Facebook.com, The Verdure Watches. I'm everywhere, man. I really believe in it, and I hope you guys, appreciate my work.
Man, but I appreciate it for real. This has been awesome. Again, I really appreciate it. Thank you guys for watching another episode of Dreamer Talks. I appreciate you. Remember, your dream is possible as long as you're willing to work for it. See you guys on the next episode.